death of Warren Lanfranchi led Sallie-Ann to reassess her life. It was time to make some changes. After all, she had a young daughter to think about.
What sort of a mother are you?
Not a very good mother.
Not a good mother now?
Not ever a very good mother.
Why?
I'm not very maternal. I'm not into... Well, I'm just not I'm not the standard good mother. I do what I think is best, and poor Sasha has to follow along behind me. I mean, she's seen me as a junkie. She knows what a junkie is. I used to hit up in front of her. She's come to the realities of life very quickly.
Sasha, what do drugs mean to you?
They're bad.
Would you ever take drugs?
No.
What do you know about them?
That they're very bad for people.
What do they do to people?
They can kill somebody.
Sallie-Ann had become a celebrity, and with that came the chance for a fresh start, a new life. She wrote articles for Australian Penthouse magazine. There was even talk of a book based on her many and varied experiences, some of them even stranger than fiction.
Later you became a call girl, which means private work, I suppose a better class of client, and certainly a lot more money for a lot less work.
Oh, it is. But it's very hard work. I decided that fetishes were where all the money was. People who really want to indulge in something quite different usually have the money to pay for it. And it was interesting. It was quite fun, actually.
So that was an aspect of prostitution that you enjoyed?
Yes, I did. I loved it. I had two clients I used to dress up as babies. I used to put them in the bath and...
These were grown men?
Oh, yes, well grown, in their 40s. And I used to put them in the bath and put the rubber ducky in the bath with them and bath them and wash their hair in baby shampoo. I had special towels for them, you know, with lambs and things. And then I used to put nappies on them and have the formula ready and feed them bottles. It's very difficult trying to rock a 40-year-old man in your arms, but I sort of simulated something similar anyway, and they were great. They were quite funny.
What did they pay for that privilege?
$500 an hour.
This world of bizarre sexual fantasy was a safe haven for Sallie-Ann. Her own life had become a dangerous game. 5 years after the shooting of her lover, she was still intent on revenge, and she'd learned that the best way to get at her enemies was through the media. Superintendent John Laycock ran Task Force Snowy, which reopened the Sallie-Ann case years after she was murdered.
Sallie-Ann dared to speak out. I think that was her fatal mistake.
Do you think that she knew what she was doing?
One of the problems with Sally is that she was a raving drug addict, and I think drugs were the driving force behind her, so caution was thrown out the window.
Early in 1986, Sallie-Ann moved into a flat with this woman, Gwen Beecroft. They quickly became friends.
We would talk about our past, and that's how she would tell me about her loved one, Warren Lanfranchi, someone that she really adored. She loved him very much. And so that's when she told me about this hate that she had for Neddy Smith and Roger Rogerson. She wanted the public to know how dangerous these people were. I think she was playing a game.
But the game was about to reach its fatal conclusion. Sallie-Ann Huckstepp had survived her heroin addiction. She survived the perilous life of a streetwalker, and she had survived the shock and trauma of her lover being gunned down. She might have written her own ending for this story. There was a chance to start a new life, but someone else had a different ending in mind for Sallie-Ann. It didn't take long to identify the victim. One of the first policemen to the scene knew this was Sallie-Ann. She was well known to the police. It was February 1986, Centennial Park, Sydney. Patrick Power was the Crown prosecutor in the Sallie-Ann Huckstepp murder trial.
Well, it was over here that the body actually got pulled out of the water, just over here by the tables behind us there, Mike. And it had been floating in the water, and it appears it was sort of somewhere in the middle of the pond, up in the pond over there, when it was first found.
Her problems with heroin were well known, but this was clearly no drug overdose. Sallie-Ann was lured to this spot the previous night by someone she knew. She was then strangled and drowned.
Doesn't it seem a bit odd that if you're going to set up a murder, that you would do it so close to a public road?
Well, you've got to remember that Sallie-Ann used to come here to buy her drugs off Warren Richards. This apparently was a place where she used to buy the drugs from Richards.
Warren Richards was known to police. He was a heroin dealer with connections to Neddy Smith and Sallie-Ann. Gwen Beecroft says a man called Warren rang Sallie-Ann's flat on the night of the murder.
When the phone rang, she was actually in the shower, so she was in there having a shower, and I ran down the hallway to the phone. I looked up, it was 5 to 11, and I called out to her. So Warren's on the phone, and then she came out and half wet and towel around her head and robe on, and she answered the phone. She got off and she said, oh, hell, you know, and started dressing out. She became hurried in a way that seemed as if she didn't want to go, but she was made to go. Someone had told her to go somewhere, but something was said on the phone that hurried her to get out of that flat fast. She was worried. And I kept asking, I said, are you going to be all right? Are you all right? And she just wouldn't tell me anymore. She pushed past me and she just looked at me and she said, I'll be back in 5 minutes. And off she went, and that was that.
It wasn't until the following afternoon that Gwen received the news. Sallie-Ann was dead.
I just had this feeling that those 3 men had something to do with her death.
Sallie-Ann had walked on thin ice for many years. By the mid-80s, it seemed her enemies were starting to outnumber her friends. Sallie-Ann had made a lot of claims since the Lanfranchi inquest, and the public was starting to take notice. But Sydney's underworld regarded her as little more than a pest. But late in 1985, something happened that would make them regard her as more than a pest. Sallie-Ann became a police informant. She started working with 2 federal policemen. Now, she was a serious threat to the cosy relationship between corrupt New South Wales police and organised crime. 2 months later, she was dead.